yesterday must have been a big day for you, because on the one hand you've got the single and you got the video came out yesterday too.
Did yeah. We shot. It was a big day. It's I had this period where I shot like 7 videos in 2 weeks. So I was like, not that, it was only a couple of weeks ago to be fair, but yeah, it was hectic. But yeah, we dropped like the visual and the song on the same day, which we don't often do. But I decided I wanted to do it because the visual was so strong. It just felt so fitting as well. So like, yeah, I dropped the visual and the song on one day. So. And
on top of that, you also had the Masterchef final, which I imagine is also a big day in your calendar.
Man. To be fair, I actually love Masterchef, but I haven't been watching it because I've been so bloody busy with the album. But like, Masterchef's like low key one of my most favorite shows on TV. So yeah, I need to catch up with that for sure.
It's good comfort TV.
Yeah. We love it. It's completely like the best cooking show on TV, in my honest opinion. Better than like, I'm not a fan of Bake Off, man.
Bake Off gets a lot of
hype. It got a lot of hype. Yeah, it got a lot of hype. But I'm a Masterchef guy through and through. Yeah, I'm loyal to them, bro.
Are you a big chef yourself? You a big cook?
Alex, I'm a chefers. I'm an absolute chefers. You know what it is, lockdown, because I live alone, so I feel like I just have to be a bit of a chefers. I have been chefing it up in lockdown a lot actually. It's just good because it's like taught me, because I haven't had a lot of time, because I was like tour and I'm like back and forth because I'm like signed in America. So yeah, so I'm like back and forth so much. Usually I never like have time to cook, but like, I've had so much time at home that I think my like cooking skills have definitely improved, I would say. Some people might not say, but I would say throughout the last year. So
do you have like a specific kind of set things that you go for in terms of dishes, or are you just kind of scattershot all over the place in terms of what you're cooking?
No, I think I definitely have. Yeah, I think I'm trying to like cook like just like really clean at the moment, because like I went through like the winter lockdown and then woke up in like January and stepped on the scales and I was like, oh, okay, that's happened, has it? I was like, brilliant, absolutely sick. So yeah, so I had a bit of like a panic. I was like, I've definitely got an album coming out in like 6 months, so I should probably try and get into some sort of shape. So yeah, I'm just trying to like cook really clean stuff, like really, I won't bore you with it, but like really like high protein stuff and that's it. But yeah, that's basically that, man.
Do you have a love of process? Do you think that's where it comes from? In the same way of like, is there a link there between the songwriting and the cooking in any way?
You know what it is? I think it is, you know. I was saying this to someone actually. Would you say that like not that long ago? I think it's like, I love the fact you can create like something out of nothing, almost like you have to. It's like writing a song is very similar to cooking in that sense. So you come up with these like little like ingredients and these like completely like solo items, and then you create it into this big dish. Like I love when people are like, I hate like cooking for like 4 hours and then you're done in like 20 minutes, and like for me, like I love that. I love the fact you can like slave over a stove for like 4 hours, and then at the end of it you got this like not when I cook, but like, you got this like beautiful meal to like sort of like marvel over afterwards. And I think like that's really like, I find that really thrilling. So I guess it's the same with songwriting, right? There's like, in the sense that you start from nothing, you got to start from absolute scratch, and then you have these like little ideas, which is like ingredients, and then you come together, and then you have this work afterwards that you can sort of like sit back and be like, oh, that like 4 hours ago that was nothing, you know. And I guess it's the same with cooking. So well, I see it like that anyways. So yeah, I guess there is definitely a link there.
I guess with songwriting though, you don't know straight away what the ingredient is exactly and how it's going to be used. Like at what point do you kind of identify a melody or a lyric or a phrase that comes to you? At what point do you kind of discover the role it's going to play within the song itself?
Yeah, I think for me, Alex, it's like I've got a very good idea about what I'm going to write about, because like everything that I have written and released has always been so true to like what's happened in my life. And I think for me, I don't see it as a positive and a negative. Like everything that I've written has, it's been so true to what's going on in my life at that time of writing. And that's why there's like, even like I've got some just hella sexual, bro, some dirty songs. I'm talking smack, but like that's just something I was going through at the time. And I think if that's what I was writing about at the time, there's obviously something I was going through at the time, which is quite funny to see where I was at and look back and sort of see like the timeline. That's very, very current in the album as well, to sort of see like what sort of like journey I was going through, like you see the plateaus of like me like in and out of relationships and stuff as well. So I went on a tangent there, but yeah, I definitely agree.
Well, it's interesting you're talking there about how when you look back, you can see those different moments in your life and you see them throughout the album, the ups and downs. Because Hourglass was written a few years ago, right? Or that experience, it came from one a few years ago.
Yeah, it's a song I wrote like in 2019, maybe 2018. Like I think early 2019, I think I wrote it. So a long time ago. But yeah, it goes back to a time which is so different to what I'm going through now. But it's really nice to sort of see that journey, and like as I said, like very very current in the theme of the album. It's just like what I was personally going through, like from start to finish. It's like you can actually see the journey of like, and I think I'm trying to like, when I plot out the album like track list, I'm trying to plot it out to sort of see in like a chronological order almost, like, because then I can sort of so you can see the journey almost in the music, and that's something which I'm trying to come across in the album.
How did that song change when you Hourglass, when you brought it in to the vision for the record? If it was written a couple of years ago, did it develop and shift when you took it into this soundscape in this place?
Lyrically, it stayed the same. It stayed the same lyrically, and I think the chords, I wrote it with a guy called Louis Matters, who I wrote say like my viral hit is what they call it, but I hate calling it that. But Until Morning, I had a big song called Until Morning in 2018, and I wrote it with him. But I think my sound had, just as artists do, like the sound develops so much in the space of time, and by the time it came to like narrowing down the album, I had such more of like a mellow tone in the way I was delivering my like vocal and the production of the vocal, where I got like a vocal engineer for the album as well, which I was really, really persistent on. Like with my label, I was like, I want it to sound so coherent and cohesive, like throughout the project. And I think that was like a really key thing. And it was like delivering the vocal differently, and also got a producer called Stint to finish it, and he produces for Neo and Sabrina Claudio and Galan and like a lot of R&B big heads. So yeah, it was just making it sort of fit really. It's like the lustful driving groove that we've got like throughout the album, upbeat and downbeat, down tempo. So yeah, just trying to make it fit that, and it was great. I've had it for ages though, so we went through quite a lot of people to try and get it right, and it was a point when I was like, I don't think it's going to make it, and then till Stint took it and did his. He did a lot of like sound design in it, a lot of like sounds and stuff, which feature a lot on the album, and I'm really into that, trying to make it fit. So but yeah, it was a real journey trying to get to it, but we got it in the end.
Where was it written in relation to Until Morning in terms of timeline wise?
I wrote Until Morning right at the beginning of 2018. Released a year later. Yeah, released it. Yeah, I released Until Morning May 2018, and then I would have written just about a year later, I reckon. I think so. Yeah, I would have written it about a year later with Louis and Jay Warner as well. We wrote it with them two in the studio, and then sat on it for about a year and a half. I think Stint took it like the end of last year. It was a late edition, so I had it for a good year and a half. As I said, like we tried different variations with it, and it was just sounding quite like pop heavy, and it was very, because it is a 4 to the floor song as well, which is something I don't often do, but I really wanted something in the album that was going to have a 4 to the floor but still felt like in that world which I'm trying to create for myself. Which was a real challenge actually, is trying to make a 4 to the floor song in a down tempo R&B album. But I think we smashed it actually, and Stint smashed it especially, trying to make it feel like it's got that driving dance sort of groove, but not make it a dance record, was a challenge. But I think we got there in the end. So
I mean, the thing with 4 to the floor is it's always going to work. So it's about working out for you, where can I use this in a place that's going to most benefit? Because you don't want to use it on every song. I mean, I know some people do, but
yeah. And for me, like I love like a 6/8. I love a song in 6/8 where I can just do like a slow jam. Like you would have a song, something. I love like writing songs that you could have like a first dance. That's like where I feel like strongest as a writer, and I feel like it's strongest as like a performer is singing something which is slow and down tempo. But like, I can't write a 10-track album with full ballads. Like, my name's not Adele. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't do that. So, do you know what I mean? Like, I just can't do that. So as much as I would love to, but like, I think people would get bored. So I have to change it up, you know, which I'm glad I did. So
it wouldn't be authentic to the range of experiences you're covering either, though.
Exactly.
Like, they're kind of pulling you in different directions.
Exactly. And that's exactly it. And a song which is so lustful and in not like a manic way, it is like a lustful like sort of end of the night song, but like it's not a slow jam. It wouldn't feel right in keeping it like any other way, so you have to sort of give it that groove. But yeah, really happy with how it turned out. So yeah,
it's got the same kind of, it's interesting you wrote it with Louis as well, because it has the same kind of rawness of Until Morning.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
It's got that same thing at the heart. I think probably because of the lustful side to it. It's got that kind of pure, raw emotion to it, but then you're doing something slightly different with the soundscape around it. Was that a deliberate thing? Were you thinking, I want to take this emotion that's at the core and try and see what I can do with it in a different setting?
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right, bro. And I think that's something which I've really carried through. I think without the whole album, and I think every release I try and put out, I like to think something that I do a lot in my songs is keep everything very raw. And it's purely because like I don't know how to write any other way. Everything is so personal and it's so true to me that everything does come out very raw and very almost harsh at times, because it is like raw elements of the song coupled with like really true lyrics, and I think that's and the melody as well. So it's just trying to find that balance, you know. But yeah, I like to think that's something I pride myself on in my work, is keeping it really raw, but then developing it in an interesting way. We go like 4 to the floor, we go like different soundscapes, as you said, trying to find ways of doing that. But yeah.
Is that why you work with a variety of producers as well, to make it easy to kind of pull it in different directions?
I think, yeah. I mean, I've been around for a minute, bro. I've been around for a while, bro. And and I've worked with like near enough every producer under the sun in the UK and quite a lot in the US now. But I've definitely I like to experiment. I like to collaborate with people. I will say, like, me as co-writers, though, I don't work with a lot of co-writers at all. It's just me, usually it's me and a producer. That's where I feel like I work most effectively, because I think like the music is so true to what I'm going through at the time, and it's so real to my life that I think if I had to bring in a co-writer, I think it would sort of take away that almost. But that's why I like to work with me and a producer, and why I like to experiment with a lot of producers. But now I think I've done the rounds. And I think I know like who I work strongest with, and that's like my advice to like a songwriter that's starting out with their own artist project. I think like you've got to do the rounds and find out who you work with, because there can be people who are like, on paper, it's like Man City, bro. Don't know if you're a football fan. It's Man like United. Man City. Okay, you're Man United. So it's like Man City, bro. On paper, the most flames team, but have they won the Champions League? No, they haven't. Do you know what I mean? Because like, it just doesn't mean because on paper you're absolutely like you think you work with should work so well, doesn't necessarily mean that, you know. You can just, some people you gel with, some people you don't, and I think you just gotta like do the rounds and find out who you work with. And for me, like, I found who I work well with, you know. Get that chemistry is so important.
Was that something you had down before you went to working on the record?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think in UK wise, yeah, definitely, because I hadn't been to US before I started working on the record, but I'm signed in LA to records and publishing. So, but in the UK, like, there's like 3 or 4 producers that I work with, and that's Louis, Maths Times Joy, who I work with a lot. Trying to think who else. Grades I work with a lot, and I'm sure there's someone else who I'm forgetting, and I'm really sorry. But there's like, I've worked with everyone, and then it's mad when you think I've probably worked with 50 to 60 producers in the UK, and there's 3 or 4 which I'm like consistently in with. And then in the US, yeah, the US was like, I had to start it all over again, you know, like work with like everyone and then just sort of see what clicked. And then they're the people that are on the album now, and they're the people that I still work with to this day.
How quickly into that collaboration do you know that they're one of those special people that you really connect with?
I think instantly. I think for me anyways, instantly. I think other people might tell you different. But I know, and I think the producer knows as well, like pretty soon into the session, whether you're going to vibe or not. Especially as someone, as I said, I don't have a co-writer, so it's just me and a producer. I'm going to know instantly if we're laying down something. I'm going to be like, yeah. I think every song on the album that I have is something which came very, very naturally to me. And I think that's why they resonated so well with me, those songs, is because they came so naturally and the chemistry was so apparent very soon on from working with them.
Yeah. You mentioned your label as well that you have out in LA, which is interesting because I remember after you put out the Colour session, you spoke about how you got offered a few major label deals, but you chose to go with an independent. Was that a similar thing in terms of connecting? Is it a similar thing with the producers where you met the label and knew straight away that this was going to be the place for you?
Yeah, it was a weird time because it was like I had this like very, very viral video that we did for Colours, and it was really cracking on the views, and I think it had done like 10 million in like 6 months or something. It was like a lot. It was something crazy, and we sort of had every major label was definitely interested. I think like at one point we could say like not every, but like definitely some big dogs, and it was very, very. I think the advantage is that I've been in music a long time. At that point, I've been putting out music since like late 2016, and this was like mid 2018. So I've been putting out music, and I'd been around before that, obviously writing and doing stuff. And it was very apparent that like in this industry, people are very quick to jump on like viral trends and very quick to jump on like the hype train, which is like what I don't know if people call it. And I think they would come to me and they would be like, oh, James, like we can make you like the next Sam Smith. And it's like, great, love Sam Smith, he's sick, but I'm nothing like him at all. Like you've seen like a white boy who sings soulful music and you've thought, oh, that's like a path that we can go down because we know that works. And I don't think that would have worked for me. And I don't think I'm like a pop guy, a pop star. I don't look like that, certainly. So I instantly like dismissed all of that. And I always knew I was not gonna stay in this country with terms of signing like for my first deal, because the R&B scene is so stagnant here. What it was back in 2018, it's definitely developed since then with like the likes of like Georgia Smith and like Mahalia's doing bits and stuff, and Tiana Major 9. Like recently, like all these guys are killing it. But back in 2018, like there was no R&B scene that was being. There is underneath it all there is, but not being plugged properly, I thought, by like the UK big dogs, like radio labels and stuff. So I knew that I had to go to America if it was to do R&B, and that's what we did. Yeah, so that was the reasoning behind going for the indie US labels.
The first song that you put out from the record, Somewhere Out There, I like the fact that you open that song with the line, "Finally I'm at peace with myself." Was that the opening line?
That is, yeah, man.
And then straight away after that you come in with, "But honestly, I still have so much more to give to you."
Yeah.
Which kind of completely counteracts it and indicates maybe there's not quite the piece that you're indicating from the offset. Is a certain unrest within oneself, is that key to creativity in that way?
Yeah, I think, yeah, bro, it's bang on. It's bang on. That's exactly why I wrote that lyric. Well noticed, by the way. Well noticed. But it's, yeah, finally I'm at peace with myself, but honestly, I'm so much more to give. It's like this constant need to not be fully complete and feel like you still have so much more to give, despite being completely content. I know that there's so much more out there for me in terms of finding someone. Like I'm complete in like my everything else that's going on, and music's going well and everything, but like I want to fall in love, you know. I want to have a family one day, and that's definitely like the reason behind that lyric as well. And that song like came at me at a really like important time when I wrote it, because it was like everything was going so well, but I was so lonely, and that's what that song's about. I was so lonely, like traveling back and forth to the States and and everything was going well, which it still is, but I was like super super lonely and like longing for some sort of affection and love, which I didn't have at the time, and still don't now, which is like the sad reality of like a traveling musician. But yeah, that's exactly what that song's about. Yeah,
Thing is, you don't notice it either when you're moving so fast, and it's only when you come to stop that it kind of all hits you, and it's almost harder than if it was there at a constant level all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly it, mate. That's exactly it. Yeah, when you're moving, you don't quite notice it. And it's only when lockdown hit, a really big example, when you're back, you're sat in one place and you're like, oh, I'm not happy. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's exactly what it is.
What do you learn about yourself when that happens? The thing that you've kind of been orbiting around and it's been driving your life and your momentum, this traveling back and forth to these sessions. When that's taken away and you're forced to stand still, what do you learn about yourself?
I think for me, I know it was tough for me, because I think one thing I took from myself is how much I love performing live. That's definitely one thing I took from that whole situation was and still am now, because I can't play live, is that I thrive off being a live performer. And I've always said, like, you can trace it back, I've always been like, it goes live performer, writer, recording artist. Like, I always think like that's like how it goes in terms of an artist for me, the artist project. But and it was sort of like, I wouldn't say like I fell out of love with music in like throughout lockdown, but it was like it's actually really interesting to like see how much I depended on it, like mentally. And because I think for someone like me, I don't care about the numbers like at all. Like, numbers is not something which I will ever like really care about, and I probably should. But like for me, like, I'll know how well a song I've written and has gone down with is the reaction of a crowd singing it back to me. That's always something if I'm singing a song which has got 500,000 streams and they're screaming it out loud compared to a song that's got 16 million streams and they're just like jamming along to it, I know for me which one I'm more proud of there, if that makes sense. So that's something I
comes down to connection.
Yeah, exactly. The audience connection with me. And that's something which I like really, really thrive off. Maybe it's because I'm, I don't know, a bit of like a showboat or something like that. I'm a bit of a show off, like attention seeker or something. But yeah, I've always just really enjoyed playing live. So, and that's something which I took away from it.
I know you said before as well that maybe 2 or 3 weeks before a live show, you'll stop drinking and you'll get on the Manuka Honey.
Bro, yeah, I don't know how you know that, though, but yeah, well done. You've done his research. Come on. Yeah. No, so basically, yeah, I take it very seriously, and some people might call me boring, and I know a lot of people, when they're drinking, their voice gets this like really husky undertone and they love it. For me, my voice goes. I've got such a fragile, I think it's because I've got a lot of like falsetto, and my voice, I love to write songs which are really hard to sing as well. So yeah, for me, I think it, because as well, I trained in opera. That's how I started singing. I started as an opera singer. Yeah, so I like grew up looking after my voice so well. Like, I warm up every day. Manuka Honey is like my best friend. Still waiting for that endorsement though. If that comes, we'll see. Yeah, I have to look after it, man. I have to look after it. And touring is hard, because which I've only done one, to be fair, but yeah, I have to really, really, really look after it in terms of like not drinking, not going out too much. If I know like this, like prime example, like the last few weeks, I said we shot 7 videos and a lot of them were like singing stuff. So I haven't drunk in a long time before that, because I knew that I want to like give myself the best chance and give the best performance possible. So yeah, I take it seriously, man. I'm really fun, I swear.
Do you do the same thing before you go into a recording studio? Will you cut it all? Is it a similar process?
If I'm on like a sort of like, if I'm going to LA for like 3 weeks, which is quite often what we did before, I will not drink before and when I'm there. But if I'm like at home, I'm still living my life sort of thing. I'm not taking it too seriously, but that's why I like associate LA so much with work, because I'll go there, write every day for like 3 weeks, sometimes twice a day, and then come back absolutely exhausted. So I think if I'm drinking, then I'm definitely losing my voice at some point, because it's so hard on my vocal cords. But yeah, for if I'm going abroad, I'll definitely take it seriously. But if I'm home, it's a little bit more chilled.
Is there anything you have to do as well to protect the space that you write in? Like, are there any practices you have to put in place there to ensure that creative zone is kept in a similar way?
Yeah, I think, yeah, as I said, like, for me, writer's block's a thing. Like, it's obviously a thing that we all go through as writers. And I think for me to sort of have the capacity to write good music, I have to live as well. And because I like to write so true to what I'm going through, and I really strongly believe in that, if there's a time when I'm like not able to write because I haven't got anything to say, I'll take like a couple of days off, a week, and then go crazy for a bit, get my heart broken, and then I've got a ton of things to write about, you know. So yeah, I think that's the only thing I have, like, in terms of sort of preparing for it. But yeah, man, no, it's mainly in terms of like vocal health when I take it really seriously there.
You said you started as an opera singer as well.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So you go from opera to folk.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
That's like either side of the.
Yeah, no, I started in opera, because I was trained by an opera singer. So I think I just started classical, started opera, then didn't like that because what like 12-year-old loves opera? From what 12-year-old South London boy loves opera? Not me. Well, they might do, to be fair, but I didn't. I definitely didn't.
There's gotta be one.
Yeah, of course there is. There's definitely one. But like for me, nah, that was not it. I moved swiftly into jazz, and then discovered like D'Angelo at like 15, 16, and like Lauryn Hill and Slum Village and like all of this stuff at like neo soul, like Musiq Souldchild at like 16, and then probably 15 actually, and then yeah, for some reason moved into like this sort of like guitar-y type stuff, which is, but this is like, I think I did that because I didn't know how to produce, and like I could play guitar like okay, like fairly well. And I think so, like, I thought like the melodies were really soulful, and the song I was singing about was still the same sort of stuff, but in terms of like sonically and instrumentally, yeah, it was like folky for some reason. But that was all the facilities that I had with like no money, and I didn't know how to produce, and I was really bad at it. So I had to write what I could, and then yeah.
It maybe suits like the rawness of your songwriting as well, like what we were saying about earlier on.
Yeah, no,
it's a logical place to go for that.
Yeah, like the rawness definitely is still instilled from back then, like a 17-year-old James Vickery to a 26-year-old now. But yeah, so that's definitely like the roots are still strong, which is what I'm really proud of. So
is it a similar thing melodically? Like when you listen back to melodies you came up with then compared to the ones you do now, do they still have a similar kind of feel and shape to them, or has that changed at all as a result of moving genres?
I feel like when I was sort of back then, I think people definitely tried to like direct me away from making. I think I'm more experimental, and I'm definitely more like jazz inclined and more like R&B based, like soulful vocal. I think people were like, no, that's too. I think the people I surrounded myself with back then were like, oh, that's too jazzy. But someone would never say that to me now. They'd never ever be like, oh, that's way too jazzy. That's way too left. Like, you don't need to be left. You want to be like middle left. That's where you want to sit. And I think I just surrounded myself with like the wrong sort of people in the terms of what music I wanted to create. So I think that's probably changed a lot. I think as well, I wouldn't ever let anyone be like, yeah, you sing way too jazzy, because I'd be like, what are you talking about? What does that even mean? Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think I'm just more like really true to myself in like the sort of stuff I'm doing now.
It's interesting, you like what you're saying there, that once you find that group of, we're speaking earlier on about the producers and you find people you like to work with, once you find that, does it almost become easier to channel that rawness and what's true to you?
Yeah, it does. I think it's a process though, so it does take its time in terms of like being a songwriter, I think like you have to find, it sounds cliche and everyone says it, but it does take time to find your sound. And for me, like going through like that folky thing led me into meeting like R&B producers, and then like being like, I meant electronic producers, and then from electronic I was making like this sort of electronically infused R&B, but didn't really sit well with like the electronic ones, and I wanted to make R&B, but as I said, R&B wasn't a thing that was doing well in this country, so I was always pushed away from that. So I was trying to tell her earlier, but and then eventually was like, no, you know what, I'm gonna make R&B. I really like R&B, and then made Until Morning, like, and then after that was sort of like, okay, so I need to be doing this. I need to be doing this. Like, I don't know why I've been listening to all these waste, man. I'm joking. But yeah, and then so as I say, like, you got to stay true to what you believe in, and I think had I not gone through that, I definitely wouldn't have had this like raw emotional undertone in all my music if I'd not gone through that sort of like guitar based like folky type stuff originally, which is still sadly online somewhere. So yeah.
That must be really gratifying for you, though, that when you finally do what you really feel is true and what is right for you, it takes off.
Yeah, no, I think so, because I think that it could have gone one of two ways, and I think I was really lucky that people did take to it so well, and I think it is definitely a risk. 100%, it's definitely a risk, because for me, like, there was no, they weren't plugging R&B like I felt they should in this country in 2018, and something's obviously changed because they love it now, all the big dogs.
That's interesting that what you're saying there, you know, when you do what feels true to you for the first time, it feels like a risk. When you were making it, did you feel like you were in your comfort zone or out of it as a result of that? Because you've got two things at play there.
Yeah, no, I felt super comfortable, and I wrote Until Morning really quickly, and it was sort of like, before I think I was trying to merge into a genre which I didn't know a lot about. Like, I don't listen to a lot of electronic music, like, be completely honest. Like, I didn't at all. I was listening to like soul, like old soul and old R&B, and that was the sort of music which I really always resonated with.
Were you listening to Musiq Souldchild at that time?
Oh man, yeah, I've been loving Musiq Souldchild since I was like 15. That album, I Just Wanna Sing, that shaped me as a singer for sure. Like, had I not, I think like his like way of like creating harmonies around the lead lyric was something which I like really resonated with, and I've always kind of done, I think, as a result of listening to him. It's like call and response type lyric that the technique that he does in like a lot of his songs is something which I really, really resonated well with me as like a young singer growing up, and it's something which in this album I do a lot. So I got like one song that I took huge inspiration from, and now I've actually got him on the album, which is crazy, which is hilarious. So and I don't really know how we swung that, but it's happened, so I'm happy with it. So
what was the connection there? How did that link up?
What was the connection? My agents had reached, so we were looking for a few features on the album. There was a couple of songs, and I wrote this. I was listening to a lot of Bee Gees at the time, like a hell of a lot of Bee Gees at the time. I go through these phases where I don't know if you do this, Alex, but like I'll literally listen to like a band and listen to their whole catalogue, and then I'll move on to the next one and then listen to the whole catalogue. I was listening to the Bee Gees all the time for some reason. Couldn't tell you. I might have watched a documentary on them or something.
Yeah, there was one came out last year, I think.
Yeah, I think that would have been it then. That would have been it. I think my manager might have sent me a documentary, and then I just ended up listening to the whole catalogue. So everything I was writing was really Bee Gees influenced for so long. But I had this one song called Come To Me, which I wrote with Pomo, the producer, and Danny McKinnon. And I was in LA writing this song, and I said I wanted to make something that's like How Deep Is Your Love, but like more current and more in my world. And I had it, and then it was great, and it had a second verse, I had a first verse, and it was done. It was great. And I wanted a couple features on the album, which we've got, and one of them, I said I wanted like a legend on the album, because I think like I've got a few songs like I've released and I'm putting out on the album for sure, which have got this like nostalgic undertone as well, like very like vintage feel. And that I felt was one of them. It's sort of like a song which I felt like you could have heard a couple, like 15, 20 years ago, like, and still hopefully holds true now. I said I want a legend, and I spoke to my agents about it, and I was like, do you look after anyone who is under that sort of category? And they gave me a list of names, and I was like, oh my god, Musiq Souldchild, you look after Musiq Souldchild? And they were like, oh yeah, we can send it to him for sure. And this happens all the time in music for me. Like, you have a dream, you send it out to them, and then you never hear back, or they're like, oh, this isn't quite right for me, or like quite often the case, like I tried something but it didn't quite work, so thanks but like no thanks sort of thing. Sent it to Musiq, and he sent it back in like 24 hours. He came back with like full harmonies, everything, super professional, like absolute star. Couldn't believe he came back so quick with it. Hadn't even spoken about like fees, anything. He was just down, and we had like a long chat about it, and he was sort of saying the way that he writes music is like, he was like, he couldn't believe how old I was, is what he was saying to me. He's saying like, I couldn't believe you were like 26. I thought you were like same age as him, which I don't know how old he is, by the way. I don't want to disrespect him. But he was sort of saying that it was like the way, he's like, what do you want from music? Like what is your goal? And I said, honestly, I just want to make people feel something. Like that's all it was. I want to make people feel something. I want to make music that outlives myself. Like when I'm gone, I would love people to still be listening to it in some capacity. And he was like, that's so refreshing to hear. He's like, you're making music which is like very, very like touching to the soul. And it's like, that's exactly why he called his album I Just Want to Sing, because all he wanted to do is sing, and it's the sort of same thing that I wanted to do. So I think we just like really bonded in that sense. And yeah, and he was an absolute delight to work with. Like, we shot a music video and he was really down to do it, and like quite overwhelming at the time, and still is now, because this is a guy who shaped me as a singer. Would not for sure not be writing music in the same way had I not have heard his albums back in the day.
I think you spoke about that when the song came out. There was this idea of, in order to make something that's timeless, you need to pay homage to the greats.
100%. Yeah, I definitely said that. Yeah, and that is so true. I think if as I said, my goal is to make something which is going to outlive me. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to take inspiration from people who have already done that. Do you know what I mean? So, and in my opinion, and I'm sure many other people's opinion, Musiq Souldchild has done that. People will be playing Musiq Souldchild records for the next 50 years, for sure. Yeah, and hopefully I can try and at least do that, you know, so...
You said, paying homage to the greats, and you spoke about making just this pure idea of making people want to feel something. Those are two really timeless concepts. What else in this record makes it timeless for you?
I think, like I said, like, you can really clearly see the journey of, like, what a young man growing up in England is going through. And I think it's something I'm not afraid to talk about, like a mental struggle that I went through on the album, which I think like is lost on a lot of R&B music now as well. A lot of R&B music is about sex, and it's about, which is great, and it's about love and lust and stuff, but I'm like not afraid to talk about like a mental struggle that I was going through, and someone that I lost in my life, which is something which is like the last track on the album is a track called Save You, and it's a gospel song. It's a song that I grew up in a church, so this is like, I'm like paying homage to like things that I grew up with, and like really like taking it back and trying to really emphasize that on the lyrical side of things, and there's a real mix of R&B music. R&B is such a broad genre, as we both know. Like, I think one of the broadest, if not, it's such a broad term, rhythm and blues. So I've really tried to like expand that idea and notion, and really like develop different R&B styles, and sort of do what comes naturally to me, and write under that umbrella, the R&B umbrella, throughout the whole album. Is this something
that idea you're talking about there, is that something you've had in your mind for a while? Because I remember when the Overture EP came out last year,
last year, yeah. You spoke
about that being an introduction to something more substantial. Did you already know what you're talking about there and what the rest of the story was going to be and what you wanted to do?
No, for sure. I think that I say like in introduction to something more substantial, I sort of played around with the idea that this is like, there's very different types of R&B in this. I've got this like song called Pressure with SG Lewis, and it's like a very like electronically infused, like sort of like poppier number. And then I've got this very down tempo song which is so dirty, and it talks about sex the whole time in perfect company. It's like a bedroom jam, like typical. And then I've got this like Spanish guitar song with like Spanish Rose, which is like got this like 90s R&B like Justin Timberlake sort of sound. And then I'm just really trying to like play with the idea, just saying like, this is what you can expect from me in the album. This idea which I'm going to be playing with all sorts of R&B styles, soul styles in this album, but to a bigger extent and a better extent as well. You know, I think